Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Slinging Seeds Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Evans. This is my co-host, Doug Adams, and our special guest today, Sam Faulkner. When I looked Sam Faulkner up, I couldn't really find much, but then I looked up Sammy Faulkner, and I found everything.
The original name.
2-year starter at Butler High School,
okay,
and then moved on to Anderson University in Indiana, where you played football there for how long?
4 years.
4 years.
Yep.
So I want you to kind of, I guess, give us background on you, Sam, and tell us like what led up to you getting to Anderson and stuff.
Okay.
What started the football dream, you know?
Okay. So obviously played high school football my freshman year, and this kind of all blends into the training stuff too, so I guess that'll probably be helpful. Yeah. My freshman year of high school, I was one of the smaller guys on the team, and I was the slowest guy on the team. So I was like, I think I was right at 100 pounds, and I ran like a 5.8 40. So it honestly like embarrassed me so much that I started training way more intensely. Like we would all be doing the same things, but I started training way more intensely. So freshman year, I was very small. Sophomore year, I grew a little bit, played some JV, did pretty well. And then junior and senior year, I actually started doing pretty well. I played defense mostly my junior year. I played like an outside linebacker position. And then senior year, they put me at an H-back. And H-back was where I was pretty solid in high school. I had a pretty good career there. First time I touched the ball, took it 90 yards. So that was pretty cool. I'm a confident person now, but when I was younger, I was not. I had a lot of struggles. I wasn't very confident in myself. I struggled in the classroom. I struggled, physically at first. So a lot of the things that I've been through have made me confident now. So I guess that's a pretty important part of the story. So from there, I didn't have the grades to actually go straight to college. So I had to sit out a year, and I just worked out and did some classes at Sinclair. And then I went to Anderson because I just wanted to play football so bad. So I went to Anderson. I played football there. I started my freshman year at a Sam linebacker, and then I started all 4 years, and my role just kept changing as I went. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up at Anderson. So
it was kind of cool because there's pictures of you from your high school years, and then when I transitioned and looked into Anderson, like the roster pictures, like the amount of growth I saw within you was insane. Can you kind of tell me when you felt like the switch just flip and you really like hit another gear and was like really feeling like your progress was starting to come out of your training?
So that year that I had to take off before I went and played college football, I trained incredibly hard. And I came to Anderson, and I was one of the fastest guys on the team. I was 230 pounds. And I was looking at myself physically, and I was like, wow, I could actually do something that would, not necessarily that I think I'm definitely going to the NFL or anything like that, but I could inspire people. And I was really into training, and I knew I wanted to be a personal trainer. And I was like, I could inspire people from where I started and really, give people something that they could grab onto, and they could, feel like they could do that same thing. Because I started as the smallest guy on my team as a freshman in high school. First year of college, I'm 230 pounds, running a, sub 4.6.
Wow.
So that was like when I started to realize my freshman year of college, like I could be really good. Well, then my freshman year of college, I tore my ACL going on a blitz. So I was blitzing, guy cut me, and I tore my ACL. And I was like, wow, I could overcome this too. So like every time I've ever had something happen to me that's like set me back, for some reason, I think God just kind of, in some way, he's always told me like, hey, you can push past this. And if you push past this, you're going to be able to inspire people in this way. Because I always knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a trainer. I never wanted to go play pro football, really.
You really like adversity and really
Yeah.
try to promote your.
And I was like, there's a reason that I'm going through all these things.
That's insane. That's really.
I knew that there was a reason I was going through the struggles that I went through, because I knew down the line that would encourage others. So
yeah, I mean, obviously I know you. So you're finishing up in Anderson. How do you make that decision that it's time to train? You know, what went into that? And then also I knew you had opportunities to coach, right? Football and be a training
GA.
At Anderson and all that. So, you know, what made you go into not doing that, and what was next?
So I had an opportunity. So my junior year, I had a couple pro teams come watch me run my 40-yard dash, and I took the Wonderlick. Wonderlick is, you guys know what that is?
I do.
That's that thing Joe Burrow got like a perfect score on.
Yeah.
So I took the Wonderlick. I actually don't know how.
Like an 11.
Yeah, I might have been one of those. I don't know. It was a lot of like really fast thinking. It was very schooly, so I wasn't naturally good at it. But there was the Wonderlick, and I did the 40. And then after my senior season, I got a call from my coach that told me that he got me into a pro day at Ball State, and that was in front of most of the NFL teams. So at that point in time, I was at Enhance U with Tremaine Hall, and I was training, and he had me kind of in a lead trainer type position at that point. So I was like just out of college. I graduated early so I could go there and start training people. And then I got that call that I might be able to go play. And I was like, well, at the very least, I'm going to train for this thing and try to put up the best numbers I can. So again, that's going to help propel my training career, you know? So that's what I did. I went and I trained hard for it. And then I learned a bunch of stuff that I did wrong, a bunch of things that I could have done a lot better. And then throughout the years, I feel like now I'm at this point where it's like, I know exactly how I would have trained for that. But at that point, I didn't know exactly how to train for it, you know?
Yeah, it makes all sense in the world.
Yeah.
Live and learn.
Live and learn, exactly. So, and I've always been somebody who learns by doing. You can't teach me sitting down. Like right now, I'm wanting to bounce around.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm sitting down, my brain's not working.
Right.
And I think that's why I struggled in school. It's not because I wasn't smart. I actually think I'm incredibly smart. It's just if I'm sitting down, my brain doesn't work as well.
You know, that's crazy because I can 100% agree with that. You know, sitting down and not being productive, I could also keep my mind kind of. How do you feel about it? Are you the same? Or do you?
No matter what I'm doing, I'm thinking about the next thing.
Yeah,
it's kind of how I am.
Doug's is a strategic guy. He's a strategic.
I'm always thinking about
he
what's
really
next,
is.
You know, so
it's awesome. That's why he's good at this. Doug is always.
I'm task driven too, so I get it for sure. So when did that love kind of switch or like that flip? So you were like, okay, maybe football.
It already had flipped.
It really did. So
it already had flipped, and I was like, I want to be a trainer so bad, and I didn't care about how much money I made at all.
Yeah.
I was just like, I want to do this. So my wife was like, because I got married like pretty much right out of college, right after that pro day, I got married, and my wife was just 100% behind me, pushing it as hard as I could, pushing my training career. She became a massage therapist, so she was kind of paying the bills, and I just kept
in there,
and I just kept doing it, and there was no like end goal in mind. I just started training people, and as my career kind of as I did it for more time, my career just kind of kept developing.
So I mean, obviously, I know. So the first time I heard about you, you were with Enhance U.
Mm-hmm.
So you were working with Tremaine. A little bit about what you learned from Tremaine with Enhance U and
Tremaine
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, Tremaine was great. So what I learned the most from Tremaine is how to hold a room. So I felt Tremaine was one of the best motivators that I'd ever been around. His training and all that was good, but I felt like his best quality was his ability to motivate. And every time I see somebody like that, I try to take something from everyone. When I'm watching people train and things like that, especially if I respect them in that way. And at that time, he was my main influence. So I watched him and I was like, I have got to figure out how I do this. Not how do I inspire people in that way? And I felt like he gave a lot of energy to his session and he was kind of pouring it into his client. So that's something that I've learned how to do over time. And I think that it's pretty effective for me because where I came from, I can almost relate to anyone. I've been the smallest guy on the team. I've been the slowest guy on the team. I've also been the biggest, strongest, and fastest. So I've got that that bandwidth. It's like I can train the kid that's got no confidence whatsoever because I had no confidence. I can train that kid. You give me the worst athlete in the world, and you're going to get a good session out of me for that. But I can also, if you bring a pro athlete in here, I can completely switch gears. You give me Doug. I trained Doug this morning. You give me Doug, I can switch gears. I can train Doug.
Right.
So I don't know why that is. I think it's just something. This is the one thing in my life that I've been really confident in the whole time I've been doing it.
It's funny because a lot of guys, when they ask me about you, the thing I say is he's so versatile. And the reason I used to say that is because I've seen you work with swimmers, I've seen you work with football players, I've seen you work with baseball guys, I've seen you work with everybody. But that even kind of hits on, so much more, is that you are versatile because you lived a versatile life. I mean, you've come from nothing, and you've also been to the highest heights of, what in your athletic career, you know what I mean? So for you to kind of, I guess, put more light on why you're so versatile is really crazy. I just more eye-opening to me. Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, and I do feel that. I truly feel that. And I think that's why you see so many kids coming into our program with me and Brandon, is because we're versatile in that way.
Yeah.
We've learned how to adapt to any kid. A kid can walk in, and I know exactly what I'm going to do with that kid based on the day, you know what I mean? It's just, and I know how to adjust. That's so important because there's a lot of trainers out there. They can train really elite guys. That's actually so easy. My opinion, training elite athletes is so easy. They can almost do any exercise at a high level. They can almost do any constraint when it comes to sprinting and things like that. They can do that at a high level. But young guys that are underdeveloped and less coordinated, things like that, that's when you have to start fitting. You have to start putting the pieces together and figuring out how you regress exercises and what are you going to do if they do this? What are you going to do? You have to know all those things. And a lot of that's built from, my past. And also it's I've been training every day for 6 to 10 hours every day for 12 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously when you first got into this, you were known as, that's the football guy, right? Sam's the football guy.
But I never wanted to be.
Right.
And I got out of it as fast as I could.
I get that. So Sam's the football guy. So a little bit about how did you get into the swimming? Because swimmers love you, right? And they all train with you now.
That is
right?
weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into, how did you try to break that trend of I'm a football guy?
I became a general athletes have. So I'm not, now when I say this, I do not mean that we need to have every program looks the same for each sport. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what qualities do all good athletes possess, and then what qualities do I need to try to push for these certain athletes to fill the buckets that they don't have filled. So in terms of the swimming, my first ever personal training client, I think I was 20 years old. His name was T.K.E.M. I don't think I did the best job in the world with Tommy. I was young. I just got out of college. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, because you look back at how you used to do things and you're like, man, I could have done a really good job now.
No, I feel you there on the hitting side, right? Man, if you can give me some of the guys I worked with 5-10 years ago,
yeah,
how much more we could have done for them.
Exactly. Yeah, because you know more.
Yep.
You know more, and you know how to adapt, and you have just a better idea. Because if you're not constantly studying and constantly learning, it's really hard to get better at this. You know what I mean? You'll become stagnant, and then you become a Planet Fitness trainer. But anyways, there was Tommy Cope.
I'm not cutting that out. I don't care what you say.
So Tommy Cope lived down the street from me, and him and my dad were buddies. And he actually is in the Olympics now, just to give you guys an idea. That was my first personal training client. And he signed up with me as a personal training client, paid the big dollar, right off the bat when I was young. And then he ended up doing really well. And he actually came back and trained with me a few times. I haven't talked to him in a really long time. So if he hears this podcast, it might be, I don't know. But, I trained him. And then as the years went on, more and more swimmers just started figuring out, hey, this guy can actually make me healthier. This guy knows how to train shoulder mobility and train hip mobility, fill the buckets. Because swimmers, they get one stimulus. They're doing the same thing over and over again. And same thing with baseball players. They do the same thing. So they get a lot of pattern overload. So whenever you have a sport that gets a lot of pattern overload, that's the sports that need general training the most.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Because you need to fill the other buckets.
Well, it's like golf, right?
Yes.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, but you see, Tiger. Everybody talks about how, and I've kind of changed my mind on this because I've been working with him and Juan.
Yeah.
But like Tiger was a specialist, and he should have been, right? Because he wanted to push his career as far as he possibly could. But he added in general training, and that's what made him a freaking beast.
Yeah.
He started strength training. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are like, you got to play all these different sports and stuff. Well, talking to Juan and Doug, it's like, well, this stuff is too complex. You know, there's certain baseball players, like that might be true for a high jumper. Like a high jumper needs to play basketball, in my opinion.
Yeah.
High jumper needs to play basketball because they need a big bandwidth of jumps. That's going to help keep them healthy, the variation.
Yeah.
But a baseball player, they need to practice those skills.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
they need to practice those skills and perfect them if they want to be the best they can be. But that's why a good general training program where they're training their max velocity, their strength, their acceleration, all those things, their reactiveness, tumbling, crawling. That's why those things, the variety of movement that a general training program would give them would really work well. And that it works well here. I mean, it works well here with the athletes that we train.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. So, I mean, going into that, you were at Enhance U.
Mhm.
You kind of grew your business into SF training.
Not really. That's not
okay.
what happened.
Okay, let's kind of.
So I was at Enhance U, and I was training this guy, and we started a artificial intelligence. So I started an artificial intelligence when I was like 25 years old, and I worked on it for 3 years. I was doing videos. I shot thousands of videos where I was explaining exercises. I built a ton of databases. We went through 2 different companies trying to build the thing out. Well, long story short, about 3 years into that, we had some problems, financial issues, website issues, things like that, and he had to just fold it.
Right.
So I worked for him for 3 years, thinking that I was going to
take
make
care of
millions.
Yeah.
I thought I was making millions, to be honest, and I was pushing so hard for it. I mean, I worked on it every day.
Yeah.
I kind of put my training career on hold a little bit, and I just worked on that. But anyways, 3 years later, it flat. Everything just kind of was gone.
Yeah.
So, and that taught me a big lesson, and that's something I talked to Doug a lot about, is you don't ever shuffle your feet in business. Do not shuffle your feet. You cannot sit there and wait for everything to be perfect, wait for everything to set up right for you. You got to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's one of the things I always laugh about in our industry is if I talk to the wrong person, right? It's, well, this graphic needs to be perfect. This video needs to be perfect. This thing needs to be perfect. This marketing piece. No, it doesn't. Just get it out.
Get it out.
Get it out, because it's got to be in their plate. It doesn't have to be great. I don't care if there's a little issue with it. Get it out, because they got to know what you're offering, when you're offering it, and how you're offering it. And it's all about that. So I completely agree, right? It's get the information out there, let them know what you're trying to do with them, let them know how you're going to help them, and completely agree.
Exactly. And if we wouldn't have done that, I mean, there was times where we could have just pushed it out, but we just wanted to add this little thing, and all that time and money and all that ended up putting us in a hole to where we couldn't even continue. Yeah. And I was like, I'll never let that happen again. So then I went to this gym in Vandalia, which I won't talk about the name or anything like that, but I went to a small gym in Vandalia, and I started personal training out of it right after that, like the day after.
Yeah.
And then I just slowly built my clientele up. They made me the head performance coach, and then I did that for 3 years and built up my business over there, training a lot of kids from Tip and Butler and things like that. Trained a couple pro guys.
Right.
And then Doug just kept hitting me up to come here.
So that was like,
and then now I'm here.
Yeah.
So
that gym in Vandalia was kind of like the ground break for you with SF, correct?
Yes, that's when I started like really.
So my leading question, and this kind of goes back into your generalized training. You speak a lot about heavy influence. What trainers or anybody in the speed and performance world inspired you and helps you kind of become that trainer that you want to be?
So now, at this point in time, I will listen to information and get better, but I try to inspire myself at this point.
Wow.
Because I don't want to become. I used to do that. I kind of used to chameleon and like be like other people, I don't want to be like other people. So I don't let anybody become like my main influence. But when I was younger, it was Joe DeFranco. If you've ever heard of Joe DeFranco before, he was like the first guy that I was like very inspired by to become a trainer. Now it's like I was listening to a podcast before I came here. I just gather information and I learn, but I don't ever change anything until I see a reason to.
Right.
The way I'm approaching things, I don't ever change.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so that's one of the things I want to get into here. So obviously, fortunate for us, we'll get into that, but fortunately for us, you decided to come to P4, right? So you came to P4 13. Some of my favorite moments at the beginning were the conversations between you and Juan.
Yeah.
Because of the way you train and the way he trains and how you guys differ in certain things, right? As a guy who's not a performance guy, trap bar, straight bar for deadlift is one of those things that was a great conversation piece and I was just in the room, right? I had no idea half the stuff you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
But it was a great conversation piece. So, like, for example, that conversation, how did you make that fit? Like, how was that for you? You guys having difference of opinions in certain areas?
Me and Juan?
You and Juan's initial conversations.
Well, initially, it's the other coaches that I'd been around at that point would just listen to me and, like, take whatever I said as how it should be. He was the first guy to be like, I do it this way, bro. And I was like, I respect that.
That's so wrong.
I respect that. And like, so, and I think that whether he would admit it or not, I think I've influenced some of the stuff that he does, and he's influenced some of the stuff that I do. I do. Yeah. I really do. Because there's certain things that he does now that I didn't see him do before. And there's certain things that I do that I didn't do before, you know? So me and him talking to each other has only made us better.
I completely agree.
It's only made us better. So and he's the smartest trainer I've worked with for sure. It's not close. So, yeah, so he's the best trainer I've been around. I love that he's a specialist. He's got a completely different way of doing things than I do, but we also think real similar on certain things. So, yeah, were you wanting to talk about the trap bar for straight bar thing?
No, I was just using that as an example of hearing you guys talk about that, right? It was enjoyable for me because I'm more of a guy I listen to everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm a guy who loves listening to really smart people. I've always said if you're the dumbest guy in the room, you're going to be successful, right? And that's why you're here, Frankie, Juan, et cetera, right? Try to be the dumbest guy in the room. Or at least act like you are, so you can listen, you can learn, right?
Yeah, don't ever let your ego get in the way of you
speak
learning.
less.
Yes, yeah.
So that was just one of those. I remember that conversation was one of the first ones we had, and I was just there, right? I'm not saying I was any part of that conversation. I was just listening, but it was awesome to hear you guys go back and forth with ideas. As a guy like me, just trying to learn and get smarter, like I always want to do. The other thing is so like. From a baseball perspective, and I'm a baseball guy, right? I go to ABCA, I go to the state clinic, I go to all these places, I listen to podcasts, I watch videos, try to study as a performance guy. Where do you get that information? How do you determine what you want to listen to, what you don't want to listen to? You know, how do you get better?
How do I get better? I think where I get, this is probably not going to be the best answer ever, but where I get the better now is in here.
Okay.
I learned so much because I'm in here a lot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm training a lot. I train sometimes 10 hours a day. I mean, like 4 days a week, I train 10 hours a day. And I learn, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Because my intuition has always been my best skill. My intuition, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but I feel like my intuition is definitely what's been setting me apart for years, is that I can look at a kid and figure out what I need to do based on that situation. And I learn a lot from that. I learn a lot from getting to train different kids. That's why I love it here, because there's a different kid coming in every day. Yeah. And I get to learn how, the first session you can learn so much. Outside of that, I have guys that I listen to that, I get some information from. But at this point in time, I'm learning a lot from what I'm doing. And I think that's a really important thing to do, because you're the only person that runs your program. And like when you go watch somebody else train, it's just totally different, So it's like you need to enhance what you're doing. So I think where I learn the most is from actually being in and training people.
No, I agree. I think your intuition is actually really good. I remember watching, I think Graham came in and you were like, oh, I'm about to make this kid faster in 50 minutes.
Yeah,
and it was not a joke. Like we watched his fly 10 go down. We watched his 10-yard go down. And it's insane.
Just watching the way he's attacking the ground, just watching the way his body positions are the way he solves problems.
Right.
And then you just try to, like what I do in that specific situation is I watched him and I was like, how do I get him to solve that problem better? Well, I'm going to put another problem in front of him. It's not like I'm going to tell him to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to put a problem in front of him that makes him do it correctly.
Yeah, I was just enforcing like I 100% agree with you. You definitely have great intuition.
I appreciate it.
In your daily day-to-day training, I think I might be going a little off track here, so if you can stop me if I'm.
It's a podcast.
We can go anywhere we want.
Yeah.
But in your day-to-day like self-training, like what are some things that you're trying to work on yourself? What are some things that are within your focus? Are you a guy that, okay, I'm going to train, but I want to try something that I'm going to try on one of my athletes?
Yes.
Or, okay, that's kind of where I was.
Whoever going. The main, so I edit it like for myself, right? Because I have a big injury history. So I've hurt myself so many different ways playing football. Like one season I played with a broken hand and a broken foot, and you can watch me on film like gimping around tackling people. But and I've torn my ACL. I've blown out both AC joints. So I have injury history that I have to work around, but that helps me learn too. But whatever the main focus is, I base my program around that. So whatever my main focus is, so I can feel what they're feeling.
Do you feel like that makes you a better programmer?
Yeah, 100%. But then it's like, what happens is like I train Alec Halter and Matthew Major right now. This is a really good example. Those are two of like the best baseball players in the state, in my opinion. And I think by the ratings too, right?
Preston as well.
Preston Zumwalt.
Yeah. You train him
so
as well.
All of those guys are totally different. Like I'll have the same program for them, but they all will do different exercises within it.
Don't forget
Hunter Richardson. Hunter's a dog as well.
If we go down this list with Sam's clients, it's going to be 67 names.
Yeah, worked with some good guys at this point. But yeah, it's like they all train just a little bit different, and it might change day to day too. Like Matthew's got a tweaky back; he always has.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first started training him, I kept because it takes almost nothing for his back to flare up. So when I first started training him, I flared his back up a couple times because there's certain things he just can't do. That was like years ago, But now at this point in time, I know exactly what he can and can't do, and I never mess with that. So exercise selection is huge,
right?
When it comes to that, like I can't just throw that kid in a deep squat.
Yeah,
Alec Halter, I can. Alec Halter, I can put in a deep squat. So Matthew Major is going to do something totally different in that block of training, but we're still got the same focus, same stimulus that we're trying to attack.
Wow, I didn't even really think of that. So, I mean, you bring up Matt, and you've known Matt for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And we knew what kind of player Matt was growing up, what kind of athlete Matt was growing up. You spoke on Matt quite a bit when we were talking in the gym about what athlete Matt used to be and now what he is. I mean, one of the top, prospects in his class, going to Tulane. That kind of ties in to what you were like, hey, I was the smallest guy. Now, all of a sudden. So, I mean, that's the fruition of your labor right there.
Right.
That's really good. I think I'm admiring a little bit. So that's really good. Like it's just really wild to watch your journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of want to go back. Obviously, you're working with a lot of incredible athletes, guys like Richardson, Dews, Schilling, Zumwalt, Halter, Sauber, Major. Like all these guys are ranked.
When you start saying them, it kind of fires me up.
All these guys ranked in the state. I mean, I know you're working with some of the new guys. So obviously you had a great success up north. Also, I guess is how I'll say it.
Yeah, up north.
Up north. How hard was the decision to come to train in Moraine at P413? I mean, what went into that decision? And how do you decide that, okay, this is what we're going to do? And obviously, how much did your wife have to say in that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Interesting question. So I wait until you always want to be so I have a business mentor named Chad Liette. He's one of my clients. And he's always told me, you wait until you're until you're comfortable, and then you got to get uncomfortable again. That's how you grow.
Right.
Now, that does not mean that I'm going to be jumping facilities a whole lot. That's not what I'm saying. This opportunity presented itself, and when I first looked at it, because I was doing well, I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's scary. But then something just kept. I would be driving down the road. What if you went to P4 and you were down there with all those other schools, and you could rebuild, and you could build something even better than what you have right now? And I kept thinking about it, and I was like, man, it would be kind of soft of me to not attack this. You know what I mean?
No,
This would be
seriously,
like, I don't want to
like,
be,
you're not
I don't
like-
want to be afraid of failing. You know?
your inner self is a bro. Like, dude, that's soft. Like, that's,
No, it
that's
was.
great.
It was
That's
soft. Like,
cool.
you're gonna sit
That's
here and
so
just keep
cool.
doing this
Yeah.
when your facility's not good enough, when you don't have enough space to sprint, where you don't have, you know, you could have more athletes coming in
Yeah.
for every single session, where you could kind of take more. You know, I have times for every kid now. Like when here at P4, I have a 3 o'clock, a 4 o'clock, a 5 o'clock, a 6 o'clock. I train kids all night.
Yeah.
Before, it's like I had 3 sessions. So, you know, I was like, are you going to take control? Are you going to do this? And it just kept hitting in the back of my mind. And then I had conversations with Doug and Juan, and it was just like, dude, you got to do this. Like, I don't care if it doesn't work, but you've got to do this just because it's something in the back of my mind. I think it was definitely God talking to me. He was just like, dude, you've got to do this. There's something I want for you here. So I just did it. But it took that a long time, because I didn't want to, and my wife trusts me because I've always made good decisions. So my wife didn't really care. I mean, she cares, but like she wasn't going to tell me not to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I was the one that was making the decisions.
That makes sense.
So it took a minute, but
yeah, and you don't have to change facilities to get
uncomfortable.
I'm here.
I'll figure it out. Doug's going to get me uncomfortable. Doug's going to be like, yeah, here's a class of 30 guys that are all top 5 in their position, and you can train them, and that's going to make you uncomfortable. But there's so much opportunity for me around here, and I definitely, and I'm not trying to just like blow, I feel like I've got so much more support. Like the guys I'm around are pushing, and that's not to say that they weren't before, but they weren't like this.
So that's the next follow-up question as you were talking about. So you've never been quote unquote an invite guy, right? So you created the invite baseball group.
Yep.
Right. And it's 23 dudes.
Dogs.
Dude.
I guess 24 really, but it's 23 to 24 dudes, absolute studs, all of them highly ranked at their position. Well, most of them, right?
Yep.
The ones who aren't yet will be, as we all know. What's that group like? You know, going into that idea, what did you think before? What do you think now? And, you know, talk about a little bit about that group that you do every Monday and Wednesday night.
It's actually humbling. It's humbling because it's like, wow, I have enough respect at this point that all of these guys didn't really even think about it. I put the invite out there. They did, and most of them didn't think about it. They were signed up.
Yeah.
And they came in that first night. So it was humbling. It's easy because they're beasts. It's easy. All I got to do is just make sure they're moving correctly and put them in positions to get better. And that's just what I do every time. But yeah, it's probably the most fun I've ever had training a group of kids, for sure. They push each other. They train hard. I don't have to like push them. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to go like the college strength coach route. I did a couple clinics and stuff and watched. This is going to be kind of random off.
You're fine, yeah.
But I did a couple clinics and things where I would go watch college strength coaches work, and they're always screaming at people. They're yelling at people and screaming at them. It wasn't like a partnership. And I was like, dude, I want no part of that. Yeah. I don't want any part of half. If I have to scream at you to get you to do a squat or sprint fast or whatever, it's like, dude, you're not going to be good anyways. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be looking for me to bust your butt so that you can do what you should be doing anyways. You should be motivated to do that. Like I'm going to motivate you. Obviously I'm going to encourage you, all those things. But that college strength coach route, I just noticed they were just screaming at kids, cussing at kids, doing things like that. And I was like, I'm not that.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to work with kids. So long story short, that's what that class has shown me, is that kind of approach really does work with good athletes. You know what I mean? Especially if they have a good head on them. So,
well, I mean, so with you being the director of our speed and performance for P413 baseball, tell us about some of our athletes that we have in our program. Tell us like the relationship you've created and what you think of some of our athletes.
Oh yeah. You want to start with like Alec?
You can do whatever.
Sure.
That's fine.
Wherever you want to go.
Yeah. So Alec has been great. I've really enjoyed training him. He's a really hardworking kid. The main thing for me that was weird when I first got here is I didn't know those guys at all. So I had to completely rebuild. And at this point in time, Alec has become one of those guys that I can just train without thinking about it. He works very hard. I mean, there's Drake Sauber. He's a great kid. Who's the other kid? I think his name's Combs.
Grady.
Dude, yeah, I love his personality is awesome.
One of the things that I kind of like about it is like looking over your left shoulder right now. But if you look at the 18U velocity exit leaderboard, you train all of them.
Yeah,
and
Right.
Braden, and Noah.
Yeah. You've trained Munch, Bevan,
Grady.
Combs. You've worked with Lucas.
This kid's awesome.
Oh, Josh Bevan. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love his work ethic.
Oh yeah, Josh.
he's
Josh
cool.
gets after
Josh
it,
is a
man.
grinder for
So
I like Lucas too. Lucas comes
So
in and trains.
I'm going to use Josh as an example here because obviously people know Drake Sauber, people know Alec Halter, Matthew Major. Take a guy like Josh, who you didn't see when he was a freshman, but kind of looked like me. I don't mean that as a compliment, but he wasn't the best athlete. He was a little overweight. He hadn't really physically matured yet, and the baseball skills are unbelievable. Right? He can catch, he can hit, he can do all those things. Kid rakes. When you look at a guy like him as an athlete, that doesn't have the prototypical body, doesn't have the prototypical athleticism. How do you help that guy versus the Alec Halter, the Matthew Major, which is a little more natural?
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah. So I look at what can he be good at. So Josh Bevan is a shorter, stockier, powerful guy. So I'm going to enhance those qualities. I'm going to push those qualities. I'm going to get him stronger so he can create more ground force, and I'm going to work on his acceleration mechanics. He's not going to be like a top end speed guy. He will. I'm going to train that.
Yeah.
But if I push acceleration and I push his ground force and his strength, he becomes a beast because he's got more strength and power than maybe even like some of these guys. I mean, not Drake. Drake's that kid's freaking strong. But like, but Josh is like a strong, powerful guy. So I'm going to push those qualities with him and try to increase his athleticism. Like a Matthew, I'm training totally different. Yeah. Matthew, it's like, dude, if he feels good, he's going to make me look good.
Yeah.
So if I go in there and beat him up with like a bunch of deadlifting or a bunch of like cleans, like I don't have Matthew clean. Matthew throws stuff. Matthew jumps on stuff.
Yeah.
That's how I train power and explosiveness with Matthew.
Yeah.
Josh Bevan's like, I'm throwing him on clean because I got to get him as strong as I freaking can because he's at not a deficit. He's more athletic than, like if you do like short sprints now, you were there the other night.
Dude,
Bevan's one of the fastest guys in the short speed now.
Yeah.
Now watching him do those rollovers and get out of it, dude.
I remember watching him the first night do the stuff with the mat, and he was dying laughing, trying to learn from.
But now he's good at it.
Now he's good at it.
But he's a kid that can absorb that. He's kind of like me in a way. He's got enough athleticism to where if you push those things, he's going to get better. But he has to do that. It's heavy. He has to improve his strength.
Yeah,
he has to. It's not fascial. Like Matthew's fascial.
Yeah,
Matthew, it's like built into his system.
Yeah,
you don't have to do that much.
Another guy who I've seen massive strides with, who got up to 103 the other day in a session off the machine, Braden Trent.
Yeah,
I've seen huge growth with Braden since working with you, starting in October with the Elite Baseball Group. A little bit about him.
Oh yeah, Braden. So he just needed to improve his athleticism, period. He needed to improve his rhythm. He needed to learn how to – I think one thing that we do well with our program is that we train the bandwidth between strength and bounce or rhythm. We train that bandwidth very well, like both ends of the spectrum, if that makes sense. And he needed that because he actually wasn't that strong. He was just a big kid. He needed to get stronger. He's getting stronger right now. And he also improved so overall, just pushing that kid's athleticism is going to make him look better because he's very skilled.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like he's very skilled. He's
probably
a good
the most natural hitter in our program.
Yeah.
Bevan's the same way.
Okay.
You just put them in the batter's box and they're just different. The adjustability in their swing, the bat to ball skills are just elite.
And that's just as important of a quality as any other.
Yeah.
Like that might show up more than how fast you run. It definitely does.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you can if I can make that guy more athletic, it's going to improve his exit velo. It's going to improve all of those numbers because he can work at higher velocities. That's why linear sprinting is so important. People think of linear sprinting as sport specific. It's like, no, every athlete needs to do linear sprint training.
Yeah.
Even swimmers, anyone, even if they don't ever do it, like swimmers don't even touch the ground.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into certain athletes, but one of my favorite stories since you've been here was Drake Sauber. So we went to a camp at Ohio State in September, a team camp. It was an invite-only thing. I appreciate the coaching staff for letting our program come up and play in front of their staff. And Drake ran a 7.33. That was 18 days before the state games, I believe, to be exact, right? Something like that. It was about 18 days. He started working with you like 3 or 4 days later, right? So you basically had 2 weeks with him, 6 sessions, right, to get him ready for the state games for PBR. At the state games, 18 days later, he ran a 6.88.
Yep.
So it seems made up. So how in the world is that possible?
Well, he'd never done a quality sprint program before that teaches him how to strike the ground correctly. It puts him in positions where, because I try really hard not to say anything. Like, I just put the kids in positions and I watch them, put them in positions to be able to perform the way I want them to. So for him, I think that he just never been in a good linear speed program where it actually taught him how to strike the ground correctly. It taught him how to move from acceleration into top end speed in a good fluid pattern. I don't think he'd ever been taught how to do any of that or put in position to do any of that. So I think that 6 sprint sessions would be huge for a kid like that, because a lot of kids are just bleeding force when they're sprinting, putting force everywhere in every different direction, and they're moving fast nowhere.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. So you go, and it's funny. Like I said, that's probably my favorite story so far. Is seeing the instant improvement that you did in a couple weeks. How do you go from a guy like Matthew Major that we talked about, Preston Zomald, Hunter Richardson, Drake Sauber, and you work with Colton Stupp, who's 9, hasn't even turned 9 yet.
Well, it's just
how's that balance? And then you go from Colton Stupp to a guy was 290 pounds when I started working with you, right? And weighed in today at 258. Even after eating poorly all weekend because I was on vacation with my family.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So how do you do that? How do you do that balance?
Like a young kid. Kids, my state of what I'm thinking about training is just totally changes. I think about what I have wanted to have been good at when I was younger, and now looking back. So like young kids, pistol squats. Learning how to do a pistol squat. If you can do a pistol squat, you probably have good ankle mobility. You probably have good knees. All of those things. Most young kids don't know how to do them because nobody teaches them. They just put them under barbells. Goblet squats. You need to know how to do a goblet squat. They need to know how to do a good push-up, like a full range push-up where their scaps moving everything, not like an army push-up where you're like stopping at the top and whatever. They need to be able to do chin-ups. They need to be able to hang. They need to be able to do handstands. They need to be able to do iso lunges for at least a couple minutes, like holding at the bottom. So a young kid, like what I'm trying to push just totally changes. I'm going to put them in positions to get more coordinated. But yeah, I'm trying to build, like a young kid, I'm trying to build their base.
So, talking about the young kid trying to build the base. So if you were talking to a parent of a 8 to 12-year-old, when should they start? How often should they be training? What would you tell those parents, and how much would you want them to do in season if they're a football player, basketball player, baseball player?
Like a young kid?
Like a young kid, 8 to 12 years old. What would you recommend, and what would be your advice to parents of 8 to 12-year-olds that, like, man, I really want my kid to do the best, but I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want to do too much. What would you recommend them?
So it depends on how much they like it. So if a young kid's like really, really into it and he really likes to train and he shows, and every time he comes in, he gets a good stimulus, maybe 3 times a week.
Okay.
But if a young kid is like kind of just sort of interested, he gets tired easily. He gets bored with it easy. Like 8-year-olds a lot of times are like that.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice a week.
Okay.
You get what I mean? Like young kids, it's about how much they are enjoying it, because if they're not enjoying it, they'd be better off doing something else. You get what I'm saying? They'd be better off playing a sport, doing something else. But I definitely think young kids need it. Like if they're able to get motivated, which I think we do a good job of motivating young kids here. If they're able to get motivated to train hard, I think it would absolutely help them, because the earlier you start teaching them how to do the basics, and I'm not talking about loading their spines, nothing like that. We're never putting a barbell on a kid's back, nothing like that. But teaching them their basic motor patterns, like their hinge patterns, their pistol squats, their goblet squats. The earlier you start teaching those things, the better they're going to be at them when they get older, and the faster you can get to training them heavy and improving their ground force and all of those things. So I would say a young guy, I'd like them to go 2 times a week. And if they're very motivated and they like it a lot, they could do more, because they have a ton of recoverability. I mean, young kids will come train here and then they'll go play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they can recover from about anything. They're not going to get real sore.
Yeah. And what would you say to the 13 to 15-year-old?
Start going, start grinding.
Yeah.
Start grinding. And like a lot of times I'll have kids that are freaking 16 that come in here and they can't do a goblet squat. So they have to train like a young kid and they hate it. They get mad at me. But then when I get them on a barbell, you know what I mean? There's certain things that we want to be able to do at a high level with lighter weights and with body weight. We want to be able to perfect those things before we just put them underneath barbells and throw them to the wolves.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you don't want to create compensation patterns. Like if a kid what I've noticed, because this happened to me, when I was younger, my hips were strong, my quads were not. So when I would squat, I would kick my butt way, way back. And I squatted because they would just put me right under a barbell. So I squatted like that forever. And it was really hard when I learned. I was like, okay, I need to learn how to load my quads. I need to let my knees go forward a little bit. It was really hard to learn how to do those things. And like, I feel like that could have been taught at an earlier age. Like I could have learned how to do the basics first. Like I didn't even know what a goblet squat was until I got to college. Not to college, but you get what I'm saying, or how important a goblet squat was, holding a dumbbell in front and letting it track you straight down into the hole. Like I think those things are super important.
So, what would be your advice to the high school athlete? How often should they train? I mean, when would you like to see them train? How much should they do in season? Because that's a big question I get a lot of times.
In season for baseball is huge. In season for baseball is huge. Now you have to start training for a less amount of time. So like, if you want to recover from your training, you have to consolidate down what stimulus you're trying to achieve. Like if you're trying to get stronger, you have to just focus on that. Like in season, right? Yeah. You have to just focus on that for like 30 to 45 minutes. But if you start going past and you start training, you'll start getting into overtraining. But baseball is huge because baseball is not super taxing. Yeah. You get what I mean? Like from and that's just me talking to my athletes. It's not super taxing. So like a baseball player needs to be training all the time. Yeah. I would actually dare to say that like a high school baseball player, if they're serious, 4 to 5 days a week training. Now that's not all maximal strength training. That's not all maximal speed training. There's a lot of flexibility that goes into that. There's a lot of mobility training, things like that keep them healthy. But I would say if you're serious about training, you should be training 3 to 4 times, maybe even 5 times a week.
No, I mean, you saw heavy results out of Noah McCann.
Yes.
Last year. I mean,
and he was playing that whole time.
Yeah. And
playing the whole time.
College ball, and I'm sure he has the same, and you big impressions on him for sure.
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss him. But yeah, I think that it's super important that they start training. Like if you want to be good, do you want to be good or not? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? You cannot, and you might be okay high school baseball player, but
no, if you want to, yeah.
Like you look at those dudes in the MLB, dude. Like some of them have it naturally, right? Some of them are just huge and strong, and they don't really have to do that much to get there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But like then there's other guys where it's like, do you want to be like that? Well, we better train Juan talks like that too.
Yep.
We better train those qualities. We better get you to where you are that strong. You know what I mean? There's numbers that you have to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned Juan a lot. So I'm going to go a little different direction with training. You've over 100 athletes. I don't know the exact number. I know it's well over 100 that come in here and work with you on a regular basis. The guy in here that kind of doesn't get the credit, right, is Brandon. Yeah. Brandon's a grinder. He's always here. What does Brandon mean to your program? What does Brandon mean to you? And I would like you to hear you talk about Brandon Riffle a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love Brandon. So Brandon interned with me at the other gym I was at. And he could have interned like under anyone. He was just supposed to be there. And then he ended up just like sticking to my hip for the whole internship. So he was under me for like 6 months. And I think, and he just kind of ignored all the other programs and just stuck right next to me and learned everything I had. And then he started helping me video and stuff. So when his internship was over, I was like, hire that guy. You got to hire that guy. And so they hired him. He mostly was just helping me. And then when I came over here, I was like, I got to get Brandon over here, because he's just, at this point in time, it's just like my, it feels unnatural when he's not here, Yeah. So, Brandon's a learner. And Brandon is getting better every day. He's getting better every day because he likes where he's at. He likes the training process. And I really feel like he's getting to the point where he can train almost anyone at this point as well. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Brendan. I couldn't be more appreciative of him.
You guys ever conversate about like both of your transition over here?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was super interesting because he was kind of on the fence for a second, but when he came over here, there was just like no hesitation whatsoever. It was that was a really cool deal.
Yeah, it's been great having you guys here. It really has.
Yeah, he's done a really good job. Yeah, obviously he's got a little bit different focus. Like I think he does a really good job with adults, and he also has got like that powerlifting background. So there's certain things that he just gravitates towards. Like I like having him in the weight room quite a bit. He's very good at teaching lifts and things like that. So yeah, man, I don't know at this point in time. I don't know how I'd do it without him. Yeah, Brandon's my guy.
Part of the team.
Yeah,
absolutely, huge part.
Yeah, we got everybody on our team here. We've got a great team.
Oh, no.
You can't deny that.
No, surround yourself with people smarter than you.
Yeah,
right, and that's the goal in life, right? So, yeah, so I mean, obviously, you're training all that. You got your elite baseball group going. You got your groups every day, all that. So so next for you, like you're curious with what you do. If you were going to advise a trainer, somebody who wants to be the next Sam, right? The guy who's going to do that, what advice would you give 18-year-old, 22-year-old Sam, done with college? I want to start doing this. What advice would you give him that, man, I wish I knew that then?
First of all, you can't have any expectations on how much money you're going to make, how well you're going to do, how many clients you're going to have, nothing like that. Because if you go on like Google and you say like how much does a personal trainer make, it'll tell you like 30 or 40,000. But the truth is when you start at $0 and 0 cents.
Yeah.
And you have to earn it. I don't care who you are. I mean, I don't care if you're the greatest coach alive and you have the most knowledge. If nobody knows who you are and you haven't put out any results, you're not going to have a bunch of clients right off the bat, So it's being consistent.
Yeah.
It's coming in every day and learning and not getting attached to this end result, but just constantly just keep stacking days. Every day, come in and train as hard as you can, give everything you have to your clients. That's what I've done. Is every day I've just trained who's in front of me as hard as I possibly can and done as good of a job as I possibly can with every single client. And it's built up to 100.
Yeah.
But it started so small. Like I remember I was making a quarter of what I'm making now when I was like 3 or 4 years ago, so It's just one of those situations where you have to just keep at it every single day. It helps to go work for someone who knows what they're doing.
Dude, hey, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Sorry. But
go work for somebody who knows what they're doing so you can see like somebody that you actually respect, not somebody who's successful, but somebody you actually respect.
Yeah.
I
mean, that wasn't even a choice that I made. But I'm just kind of leveling with you here because I'm still early in my trainer's journey. I'm just now becoming a trainer. I've been one for a year now here. And dude, learning from you, I've learned so much from you. It's insane. And Frank and Juan, and even you, man, like you teach me stuff every day. So no, I was just hitting on that. Like that's huge. I think every trainer who's just starting needs to do that. They need to find a mentor, need to find somebody who they respect and somebody who actually has true knowledge. Like when I heard about you were Doug Adams, who's been hitting instructor and a coach for 20 plus years in our Dayton area. I said, if I'm not around this guy, I'm an idiot. I don't care how much money I make. I want to be around this guy.
Yeah.
And that's just how it worked.
Exactly. And that's it.
So I think one of the other really cool things that you do in your program that I don't think enough people know about is you take on sports at school districts. So like Butler baseball.
Yep.
You just got a swim team that you added, right? Mm-hmm. All that stuff. And you will train them for their specific sport, you know what I mean, and all that. So how did you get started with Coach Dews at Butler?
Yeah.
Obviously, as a baseball podcast, we all know Trent Dews, amazing Hall of Fame coach, all those things.
600 plus.
An incredible amount of wins, right? How did you get into that? And, what made you think about doing that with certain programs?
So with Dews, I think it started because I've been training Damon since like the first 3 years that I was a trainer. So I've been training Damon since he was just like a little kid, like he was like 8th grader or a freshman.
Ground zero.
So I've been working with him for a really long time. I didn't even really talk to Dews until like I think it was 4 years ago. So I trained at Damon, and then I had a couple other baseball players come see me, and it just kind of was like a trickle down thing. And then Deuce contacted me one day. He's like, I really want this for my baseball team. And I was like, that's awesome. So then he signed up Kobe. Kobe started coming to the gym, and then he had me come on for a contract at Butler. And I think I'm on year 4 with Butler right now. So through talking to him, Deuce appreciates when you keep his athletes healthy. And that's one thing that I've always been able to do is keep my athletes healthy. So at the beginning, it was he let me do this much, and then they had success. I remember that was like when they had Boston Smith. Who was that other? Caden Etchman. You guys remember him? I think he was a pretty good player. There were some really good players. What's the kid from EKU? There's another kid, but that was that very first year. He let me do this much. And the next year, he let me do this much. And the next year, he let me do that. And now it's like he lets me do like design all of their programming for their strength and conditioning. And the reason I work for them is because he believes in me, dude. That's like the only reason. It's kind of he believes in me. He's been there for me. He's helped push me, and I want to do the best job I can for him. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just through training his kids and him seeing the results that they were getting. And then over the years, just seeing how I've studied and got better at training baseball players specifically, he's just continued to keep me on. And I don't really foresee not working with them. Speed kills.
Yeah.
When it comes to high school sports, speed kills. It's crazy. Football, baseball. It doesn't really matter if your team's faster. You got a pretty good shot of winning because you're going to make those plays that other guys can't make. So
throughout our conversation, you brought up Christ, God,
yeah,
times, and you can kind of go along with me if you'd like to. Can you kind of tell us your relationship?
Oh, dude. When I was a young kid, I got hit with a golf club. Like right here, you can see it. Like if I take my hat off, you'd be able to see it. But I got hit with a golf club, and I was really close to dying. And I remember just like when I came out of it, feeling like there was something that I needed to do. And that sounds really corny, but it's true. Like there was something that I needed to do. So, and then throughout my life, I've just gone through so many struggles, like, not being able, I wasn't very successful in the classroom. I struggled, I always struggled like, conversationally when I was younger. There was just a lot of things that I had to overcome. Like when I was a kid, I didn't get to play sports for a really long time because I was healing from a brain surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to overcome that. But I always felt like for some reason, God's job is just juicing me up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just never doubted him. And like every time I have a gut feeling about something, I just know it's him and I just do it. So, long story short, it's like he's pulled me out of every situation that every bad situation I've ever been in. He's turned it into what I am now, which is empowered. Like, I feel like powerful because of the things that I've been able to overcome. Mm-hmm. Now I have 2 girls. I've got an awesome wife, and I want them to see that in me, and I want my athletes to see that in me. And I think that they do, whether they know it or not consciously.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I think that they do. But there's just been a lot of things that a lot of people had if they didn't have that relationship, and that comes from my parents. My parents pushed that with me.
Yeah.
My parents were always not overly religious people, but they were definitely relationship. They had relationship with God, and that just somehow it's in me. So, it's the most important thing in my life, and I don't talk about it much because I get emotional every time.
Yeah, I enjoy talking about it with you occasionally behind the scenes and stuff. But yeah, so that's obviously an incredible response, and we can see how passionate you are about your faith, and that's amazing. I think it brings you emotional, and I love it. So,
it's the reason that I do this.
For sure.
There's no because perceivably, like up until I started training people, I wasn't, unless you're talking about football, I wasn't necessarily really good at anything. growing up. And then I started training people, and I got like, dude, I'll be out there training sometimes, and I just get this like, ooh, like I'm like, I'm freaking gonna kill this dude. Like that's just how I feel. And like, and I know that feeling, that's God. Like if you feel that, that is God pushing you.
So I guess my next question would be, I know it's a little off the subject of what we were just talking about, but what's next?
What's next?
Like, so, what motivates Sam? What are you looking for next? Like, what are you excited about? What's coming up here around the corner? Like, what are those things that, continue to motivate you, and where are you trying to grow this thing?
Man, I want to keep helping kids that are, I want to keep helping kids of all kinds. There's no like specific kid that I want to work with. I love training kids that struggle athletically. I absolutely love that. I want to get more of those. I want to train more kids like that. I want to just continue. Like I said, man, if I thought like that, I don't know if I'd be here. If I thought like, oh, I need to get to where I'm training all pros, I don't think I'd be here. So I think it's just doing more of like what I'm supposed to do. Like I come in every day and there's a bunch of kids for me to train. So it's like, that's it. I don't really think past today. It's kind of, a lot of people do. Everybody's like, I got this huge plan. It's like, well, I'm just going to crush it today. And I'm going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to crush it today because I got enough on my plate today. God's got me a workload today. I've already trained 2 hours. I've done this podcast. I'm going to train from 2 to 9 tonight. Like, I got my plate full. So it's like, I'm going to crush that. It's not a thing where I'm thinking about.
Incredible response.
Absolutely.
It's not a thing where I'm thinking about, what am I trying to get to? It's like, dude, it's not really up to me. It's up to the people that come in here, So
that was a great closing statement. For episode 3, Doug and I just want to express how thankful we are for you to come on the show and to, give us an insight of your life, the way you train, and the way you came into this. For more stuff like this, you guys can see us on Spotify and YouTube. We also have Instagram and Facebook, so make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. And that's a good one, guys, and that's a wrap.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.